Hey, beautiful people. Welcome back. I missed y'all last week for last week's Transmission Tuesday. I fell quite ill and I am feeling way better now, so I'm super stoked to be back. I find that when you're kind of off of your feet, you realize how much you have sort of to be grateful for and like how to really not take the things that you find mundane sometimes for granted. So super stoked to be back. Happy to have you listening and watching. For this week's Transmission Tuesday, I wanted to get a little bit more personal because I have been meaning to do this for a little while and have been feeling a little bit shy about it. So I figured that, as soon as you feel like you kind of want to move away from something, it's the best time to do it. So this week's Transmission Tuesday is titled Why I Became a Healer. And without sort of really going into, this happened in my life, this happened in my life, and this happened in my life, one of the reasons, I guess, I chose to make my spiritual practice something that I chose to share with other people. Because, like being a healer and like being somebody who intuitively understands how others are processing emotion or how to sort of give healing through touch and how to understand sort of some of the deeper things that people are moving through. Lots of people have that skill, and I truly believe that everybody, like the body, has the ability to heal itself, and as healers, we're really just guiding that facilitation. Anybody who works in like acupuncture or osteopathy have similar views where, the body always wants to move towards health, and our job is to just help facilitate that. And in my realm, it is a little bit physical, but it's more about the soul and the spirit feeling at ease and feeling really integrated with who you are on a day-to-day basis. And part of the reason why I decided to share that was because I grew up in the 90s and in a world where being too sensitive was essentially like a death sentence on the playground. If you were a little kid and you were sensitive or you were too sensitive, you were basically a moving target. And I grew up being constantly told that I needed to toughen up, I needed to get a thicker skin, I would never make it. All of these things that I'm sure a lot of us who are in that same sort of cohort or earlier have this sort of internalized belief that, if we're sensitive, we're weak or we're a liability. We're the ones sort of putting the pack at risk. I just had an image of elephants, so that was where that came from. But it took me, and it's an active practice, but it took me many, many years to recognize that my sensitivity was not a curse. It was really a blessing. And on top of that, to be able to integrate and learn these intuitive skills that I now use in my healing practice, that came from being sensitive. The reason that I have clairaudience and clairsentience, like a lot of these sort of intuitive skills that I talked about in my earlier video, I wasn't born with all of them, and a lot of them have developed over time. And, yes, some of them, like clairvoyance, some of them I was born with and I've always had them, and that's always how I've been. But some of those other intuitive skills are ones that I have developed over time because I have taken the time and the space, and most importantly, the acceptance to be able to bring my sensitivity closer to me and to be able to tune it and to use it to my advantage. And I now have that as a skill set, and I use that frequently. I use it every time I'm with a client. And so part of why I chose to turn who I am into an active practice and take it from being a personal internal thing and put it out into the world in the courses, or the course that I offer and the sessions that I offer and the guided meditations that I create, customized for people. I chose to do these things because I want to find more people and help more people walk with me on this path, and to help themselves walk forwards on their own path, instead of feeling like there's this other path they're supposed to be on and they're going to have to layer up or numb out or do some sort of other action in order to be able to make it down that road. So that is one of the reasons. And part of the other reason that I chose to, I say I chose to become a healer because it's partially a catchy title, but it's also sort of like a thing that you decide to take on. But like I said, so many people are these people already, and you don't have to be on social media and advertise yourself as such. And you don't have to, even choosing to accept the currency of money for what I do. That took a long time to understand, because in some of the other practices or cultures that I have practiced in, for example, I've worked with some Maori people in New Zealand, and they explained to me that, a healer is never given money for their gifts. They're given other things. And it's explained that, by accepting money or by asking for money, it actually weakens their skills as a healer. And those sort of concepts I really had to grapple with for a long time before coming to the conclusion that money is a form of energy, and it's a form of currency that we're currently using. And, in the future, if we are more based in a gift economy, or we're more based in trading sort of on an energetic sense and in a different type of currency, then I will be more than happy to accept that. But undemonizing, using your skills and using the gifts that you've been given or the gifts that you've honed in exchange for the current currency that we use, that's something that does take time. So if you're a creative and that is something that you struggle with, whether it's your writing or your art or your spiritual skills or anything like that, just know that money is only a currency that we currently use, and it's the energetic exchange language that we currently have, and it's okay to be well versed in that language, and it's okay to accept and to ask for your value in that language that we currently use, because it's participation in a way, and that's okay. We don't always have to be way out on the fringes for everything, because it's actually a lot harder to make a difference if you're always out on the fringes and you're always sort of refusing to sort of get amongst it. But I got a little off track there. But part of another reason that I chose to use my healing practice as something that's out there in the world, and that's something that people can come to me one-on-one and we can work together, is because many people who are having a sort of awakening with spirit and a sort of spiritual break open, or a revival, maybe they were really sort of open when they were little and then they closed off, which is super, super common. They usually have this sort of break and this sort of reawakening, and that's called the ascension process. And part of that is this concept and this reality that we are waking up as a collective society. People are becoming more conscious. People are becoming more awake. People who have those sensitive skill sets, whether subconsciously or consciously, are realizing that it is safe or safer to be themselves and to express and to exist as they are truly. And we are elevating ourselves as a collective. I know it might not feel that way, especially if you're in the States, but I really believe that, paradigms need to break and to fall before we can create new ones that really sustain and really work well, especially when it comes to dismantling the patriarchy. But I speak about this in some of my Instagram posts, and don't know if I've done a Transmission Tuesday video of it, but I might do a new one that, there's this existence of being in 3D and 4D and 5D realities, and 3D is very much this have to survive, have to really, it's win or lose, it's you against me, it's the, survival of the fittest, whatever. And then as we move up, 5D reality is more about unconditional love and the mindset of abundance, which really just means this deep understanding that there is always going to be enough for everybody, and allowing yourself to embody that in a more sort of real way. And that happens through the ascension process where, maybe you went to bed the person that you were one night and you woke up and all of a sudden you could feel the energies of people more often, or you started to see sort of lights out of the corner of your eyes, or you start seeing 1111 all the time, or 444 all the time. These are all messages from spirit, especially if you have something that is important to you as a symbol, like a butterfly, or, I know somebody who's an owl is their spirit symbol, and maybe you start seeing owl emblems everywhere, or you start seeing them in windows and on cars, and all of these sort of messages from spirit are really amplified when you're going through the ascension process, because you're essentially peeling off the person that you were and stepping into this new evolved version of yourself. And this process is messy as hell. It is super alienating. You often find that many or 100% of your friends, at least for a period of time, no longer understand you. You feel really weird. You might be really emotional all the time. Everything is changing at once. It's sort of like going through a spiritual puberty, but more so, if that's even possible. And part of the reason why I chose to make this practice my reality, in 2018, I had an LG flip phone with T9 texting. I didn't believe in Instagram. I didn't believe in, I used Facebook to communicate and texting, and that was it. And I really had no interest in being on social media and being out there in the world. And the people that I healed through Reiki and through touch therapy and that kind of stuff was only through word of mouth. But I've realized, after having gone through a sort of different version of the ascension process that was very extreme for me, I had no teacher. And I thank goodness for the internet, because that was my only proof, or my only sort of anchor point where I could find any information about people who were experiencing the same things. I did a lot of research. I'm a big bookworm, so I read a lot of books, like Maureen St. Germain's Waking Up in 5D, like Alana Fairchild's Messages in the Numbers, which is a book about numerology. I did a lot of reading and a lot of research, but I had nobody, I had no real person to look at me and say, I know what you're going through, and I know what this feels like, or, it may feel differently for everyone, but I at least know the experience. And so part of the reason why I chose to become a healer was because I want to be available for people who are going through these sort of spiritual awakenings and these processes of ascension, so that they don't feel alone, and so that they can have somebody to bounce their reality off of. And having somebody to tell you, oh, you're having the same sort of issue. Okay, have you tried casting a circle around yourself in public spaces? Or have you tried doing this cord removal ceremony or this cord removal meditation after you're in a group of people every night? Simple things that were not simple to me when I was learning them because I had never heard of them. Doing a simple prayer before you go to bed so that maybe you stop having nightmares, and maybe those nightmares are caused from the fact that you live next to neighbors who are really unhappy and their energy infiltrates when you're sleeping. Very simple skills that are only simple when they're coming from somebody who already knows and can make your life so different, like night and day, with a few words and practices of assistance. So, I offer this program called the Ascension Code, and it's a one-on-one 3-month individual healing program where I tailor it essentially to what you're going through and what you want to learn, whether it's building your intuitive skills or sort of working on these self-healing techniques. And my goal as a healer is to equip you with all of the skills that you need so that you don't need me anymore, and that we can walk forwards as equals. And not that we're not equals when you start, but so that we can walk forwards with the same skill set, and that you can go out and maybe you can learn different things and you can come back and teach me. And the more we essentially, there's this expression, you give a man a fish, you feed him for a day. You give a person a fishing rod, you feed them for a year. I want to give everybody their fishing rod. I want to give them their fishing nets. I don't want to hand spiritual fish out, because the more of us that are out there, and the more of us that are able to be empathic but still thrive, and to be sensitive but to use that as an advantage, we are going to be integral to helping this world turn over. And if you're not a highly sensitive person, that does not, it's not to say that your presence isn't as important, but for the people who have found that their sensitivity has been hindering, or they have these sort of intuitive skills but they don't really know how to harness them, my goal is to multiply the empowerment that I've given myself over years of practice, hopefully with more ease, more grace, and more simplicity than the very long trip that I took to get there. I guess one more little bonus thing that I wanted to say about why I chose to become a healer was that through this process and through this work, I've devoted many years to being kind of just focused on my spirituality and just focused on educating myself. I uncovered a lot of gifts that I didn't realize I had, and that in itself has been really liberating because it becomes really fun. It's fun to sense the aura of a pregnant woman if you really want to, or to be able to read your own cards and get really deep intuitive guidance and not have to pay somebody to help you understand what's going on. It's some people spend more time on developing these skills. I've been reading cards for a fair few years, and I do focus a lot on developing that skill all the time. But the more you can become accustomed to your own spirituality and your own process of ascension, the more gifts you might discover that you have. So that, in a nutshell, is why I chose to become a healer. And I wanted to get a little bit personal today, so I hope you enjoyed this video. And if you're curious at all about the Ascension Code, about the private 3-month program that I run for, either your self-healing skills or your intuitive skills or a bit of both, drop me a DM if you want. You can book, I'm doing free calls about this program, so you can book a free session through my link tree if you're on Instagram. Drop me a comment, any of those. You're all super beautiful, intelligent people. You know how to reach out. And don't forget, I'm still doing free readings. So if you want a free reading, click the link below. And I hope you all have a really beautiful Tuesday. And I am sending big blessings to you. Happy mid-February.